Can you change him?
Seriously, right now?
You weren't actually thinking about going down there and fighting, were you?
I was. I was gonna try.
Okay, so you were seriously thinking about picking a fight with a trained killer?
When you put it like that.
Dang, I need help.
All right, let's go. There are certain places on this earth where the past appears to be seamlessly interwoven in the present, where traditions have been continuous and unbroken through the centuries. This is one of those places, and it's understandable when you realize that many residents can trace their family's presence on a piece of land over 1,000 years. This is the medieval festival of Portugal Castle in Portugal. And as you can see, the locals are serious about this. I am Dane, the guy in the chainmail. And this is my family. We're traveling through the countryside of Portugal, the land where I was raised, with the goal of capturing the lesser-known gems of what this countryside has to offer. We'll be seeking out unusual festivals, mysterious historical sites, ancient legends, and the unique food and drink of the people, all to experience the striking spirit of this land. Como é feito o pão com chouriço?
É massa de trigo,
Sim,
de pão de trigo, amassado,
sim.
como deve ser. Depois deixamos levedar um bocadinho, depois fazemos uns montezinhos aqui e chouriço por cima. Está a dar.
É muito simples, não é?
É muito simples. Parece simples às vezes.
Mas a receita de pão deve ter, é complicado ou é simples?
Não, é simples. Tem que levar fermento, claro, sal e pronto. Basicamente é isso.
E a qualidade da forno também é maior no
Também.
forno de...
Forno é que é importante.
É pedra, de lenha.
É de pedra, sim. O interior em pedra.
So this is pão com chouriço. It's an incredible and simple Portuguese food. It's essentially Portuguese chorizo rolled up into Portuguese bread and baked in the oven so that the chorizo and the juice infuses through the bread. It's absolutely amazing and very affordable. This is my dream, reliving history in an ancient setting. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell.
I don't.
I think it's clear that Portuguese people love celebrating their history. Whether it's an authentic fascination or just an excuse to party, it's a beautiful thing. The ability to step into a time machine and visit another era has always been one of my ultimate dreams. And stepping through the fortified walls of this 8th century castle is about as close as it gets. During this journey, I want to search out people who still carry on their ancient traditions every day, not just during festivals. I want to discover how much has survived the destruction brought on by our post-industrial era.
Cerveja de mel.
Sim.
O celta ou um licor de mel.
Ok.
Portanto, ambos são produzidos a partir da fermentação alcoólica do açúcar do mel com a água. Portanto, a junção do mel e água, portanto, resultando ou numa bebida refrescante ou numa bebida licorosa.
Licorosa, sim.
Portanto, são dois formatos completamente
E
diferentes.
isto serve serve fresca, não é?
Fresco. As duas
E outro
frescas.
serve
Também fresco.
natural?
Sim. Não,
Os
fresco.
dois?
Os dois
ok,
frescos.
ok.
Inicialmente só fazíamos produção de mel
Sim.
e agora passamos um bocadinho à transformação do mel
Uau.
para a parte alcoólica.
Então vocês também têm colmeias?
Sim.
Colmeias de montanha?
Para fazer o hidromel temos que ter primeiro o mel.
Uau,
ter
uau,
o mel,
uau.
portanto, depois fazemos o hidromel.
Sim, muito bem. Então quanto é para um?
Para um guerreiro, uma oferta. Para um guerreiro é uma oferta. Para um guerreiro é uma oferta.
Muito obrigado, amigo. Muito obrigado. Yeah, I love honey mead. He had a good story too. But yeah, I used to make a lot of this myself because I used to have a bunch of beehives. So it warms the insides. That's amazing. Try it. Cheers.
He's having a lot of fun. You should go join him. Go dance.
Nós somos os Trabuco. Muito obrigado, bom povo.
Don't fall. Don't step on any tiny branches. Just big branches. Seb, you want to help teach him?
So how was it last night?
I'm feeling pretty tired, and I think that Dane has a headache.
Yeah.
Why, that doesn't surprise me. Nice party last night, huh?
Yeah, that was amazing. I'll remember that forever.
So we booked an amazing stone cottage, which is north of here in the village of Castelo Novo, and it's right near the farm that we used to live on. So we're really excited to go back and revisit a place that we have a lot of history.
It's owned by friends that I've known since I was young, and we actually got engaged there. Sebastian was born there, in the canvas tent that we were living in. So we have a lot of memories, and we feel really close to the people who live there. Yeah, there's also another really interesting festival in that region that I think it fits perfectly in with our theme for the episode.
What's your theme?
I would say that looking into history is a perfect way to decode the uniqueness of a culture. And I want to learn the story of the land and the people from the places where things have changed the least. Most of the time, that's the countryside. I have spent years of my life living in this landscape, learning the rural customs and mythology, trying to peel back the layers of different epochs of history to discover the often surprising continuity of ancient practices. One of the draws to this part of the country is an amazing historical character named Viriato, Viriathus in English. The region we'll be exploring, between the Tejo and Douro rivers, is the heartland of the Lusitanian tribes who thrived and dominated in the times before the Roman conquest. Viriato was a shepherd warrior who barely survived one of the worst massacres ever committed by the Romans in any territory. He managed to unite the survivors of his fractured nation, and against all odds, he made Rome pay for their atrocities and delivered a series of victories against the legions. He was only one of a few leaders in history who succeeded in doing so against Rome.
Walk over onto that box. Wow. That's so noble.
Okay. You go, Roro.
Happy Messel Come here.
Little funny boy.
Look, Messel.
You like your shoes?
I like my shoes.
See that goat?
No.
The goat. See the goats next to the farmer? There are a bunch of goats in that field. Hey, Sabi, how many fruit trees can you see around here?
Olive tree, grape tree, olive tree, fig tree, orange tree, lemon tree,
Yeah, you're right.
and olive tree.
This Airbnb is so beautiful. We're so happy with it. But it's so hot this afternoon, so we're going to head down into town and swim in the river.
Already arguing. You guys want to go in the shower? Go catching the fish. See there? Over there. Oh? Go catch some fish. Look at this. Oh, there.
What is it now?
Yeah, he is. He's taking a video for them. Isn't that great?
And I just picture of jumping. That is jumping.
Yeah. I got the So this is Castelo Novo village. It's made entirely of the local stone and nestled into the Gardunha mountain range. And literally it feels like there's grapes and figs dripping off every wall. It's amazing. Also there's ancient springs with pure mountain drinking water, just like this one over here. And it basically serves the water needs of the villagers. And we haven't seen a single tourist since being here, which is just amazing because this place is absolutely beautiful. Well, this is the Lagarissa, and what's amazing about it is it's completely carved. They hand carved this out of stone with chisels hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Basically what this is for is they would pour all of their grapes from the surrounding vineyards of this town. They'd put them in here and stomp on all of them so that the juices would come out. And there's a small hole here carved out where the juice would pour in, and it would filter out all of the grape skins that would kind of stop there. Stone container here from which it would overflow, most likely into some sort of barrel. So this behind me is a pelourinho, in English a pillory. In the old days they were usually placed next to the town hall, and they were used as a place of punishment. So usually all the villagers would gather around, and a criminal might have been shackled or tied to the pelourinho, and they would get whipped or whatever form of punishment was issued. So that's the gruesome history of this beautiful little monument. From what I've learned, this is a Templar Castle. As many people have seen in movies or books, the Knights Templar was a religious order of warrior monks which was founded in the Holy Land during the Crusades. But what a lot of people don't know was that Portugal and Spain was another major front during the Crusades fighting against the Islamic Moors of North Africa. Not only were the Templars defending this area from further attacks by the Moors, but also the rival Christian kingdoms of Leon and later Castile, who were expanding in the same way as the early Portuguese kingdom in the 1100s. After the famous king Dom Afonso Henriques reconquered this territory from the Moors, this fortress was built in this strategic location, which is obviously very defensible. It has direct line of sight with the Templar castles to the east, Monsanto, Pena, and Pena Garcia. And all of those had views which stretched to the border with Castile, and so they could warn towns like this farther to the west of invasion. Can you see the lights on that mountain over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And those ones over there?
Yeah.
Past the hill?
Yeah.
Well, if the guards on the top of those castles saw warriors coming to fight, they would light big fires on the top of those castles, and everyone in this whole area would know that the bad guys are coming. And so they'd light fires, and so everyone here knew, because they could see from so far away, that the bad guys were coming, so they could all hide inside the castle.
Yeah, and that.
Yeah.
Wait, so how did castle have fire?
Because they would put a bunch of sticks at the top of the tower, and they'd light a big bonfire.
Oh.
And when you light a fire, you can see it right away from far away.
Oh.
It's faster than sending a man on a horse to send a message.
Oh. Done.
We have a lot we want to do today. We're going to go to Monsanto, which is an amazing village with a castle, and also Pena Garcia. And we're thinking it'll probably be hot later, so we're going to want to find a cool place to swim. I think it'll be good. Monsanto is an incredibly old town, with strikingly old festivals, one of which has its roots in the year 153 BC, during the Roman invasion. Archaeological records support that this place was inhabited since the Stone Age, which to me is just mind-blowing. It's possible that some of the earliest structures built here were during the Neolithic period, perhaps 7,000 years ago, although most of what you see today was built in the medieval period. The back of many of these dwellings are actually natural caves, which the early inhabitants extended by building houses onto them. The Romans called this place Mons Sanctus, Holy Mountain, revealing that even they recognized there was something special about this place. The fortress on top was originally occupied by the Lusitanians, and later conquered by the Romans, the Suebi, the Visigoths, various Arab dynasties, and the early Christian kingdoms of the Reconquista. Sebi, you want to try?
Good.
You want to try? Okay.
Sebi, you're a natural.
Where is the king?
A long time ago, somebody took them out. They took the lid off
Why?
and took them out. They put a sword on my chest like this.
Why? Why? This is the king who died.
King who died. Say rest in peace.
No, you like that.
So many warriors. They would hide and guard this castle to protect it from people who... When most people think of the great warrior cultures of history, usually the Spartans or the Vikings come to mind. But what about the Lusitanians? I think what they accomplished against Rome merits their name to be far more widely known and celebrated in history. Earlier on, I briefly mentioned the story of Viriato, the shepherd warrior, who became king of the Lusitanians 150 years before Christ. Well, he was actually from this very region, and although these walls are medieval, there was originally an important Lusitanian fortress on this very site. I mean, as you can see, this is an incredible location for a fortress. But before I continue, I should probably give you some important contextual information about the Lusitanians. The Lusitanians were a proto-Portuguese people, meaning the ancestors of the modern Portuguese, and they were a confederation of Iron Age clans who lived in this region for thousands of years. They were bound by a common culture and language, and they lived in hilltop fortresses just like this one for the obvious benefit of security and defensibility. What blows me away is how little it seems this landscape has changed through the ages. And it makes me feel like this remote part of history is still alive, like it wasn't so long ago. Viriato grew up very likely in those mountains over there, which the Romans called Mons Herminius. As a young man, he tended to his family's flocks, which in his region was the common occupation of boys his age. During this time, he would have become well versed in the art of surviving in the mountain wilds. He would have known where to find water, where to find wild nuts, berries, mushrooms, and roots to sustain himself for long periods of time in the mountains. He also would have had to defend his flock from wolves, bears, and enemy clans. The contemporary historian Livy described him as a shepherd who became a hunter, and a hunter who became a soldier, thus following the path of most young Lusitanian warriors. We're going to continue this story later, but before we depart Monsanto, I want to leave you with a legend, which is almost certainly based on historical events that we learn from the people of this village. Around the time of Viriato, the invading Romans sent their legions to encircle this entire mountain in a siege, attempting to starve out the Lusitanian Castro on this very site. For 7 years, the Lusitanians held out and fought from their lofty positions. When they were about to run out of food, they came up with a risky strategy. The Lusitanians fed their last cow much of the remaining grain, and they threw the cow over the walls where it fell to its death on the boulders far below. When after 7 years of siege, the Romans saw the splayed guts of the cow on the boulders far below, and realized the Lusitanians must have plenty of food to continue the siege, they broke camp and retreated, thus saving the inhabitants of the Castro. To this day, on the 3rd of May, the inhabitants of this region make a procession to the top of this castle, accompanied by bagpipes and drums, where they throw glass jars of flowers over the walls. That's meant to symbolize the grain of the legend. The roots of this tradition began 2,170 years ago, the age of which to me is truly awe-inspiring.
We heard that there are some amazing swimming holes nearby, so we're going to go and try and find them.
This is Pena Garcia Castle, another ancient site steeped in history, and just down the hill is where we were swimming earlier. In resuming the story of Viriato, I'm compelled to introduce another character whose extreme brutality triggered what we know now as the War of Fire. Servius Galba was commander of the Roman legions in Hispania in 150 BC. After 40 years of vicious war with the invading Romans, the Lusitanians grew desperate for peace and to stop the continual destruction of their cities by Roman siege engines. In a cunning ploy to weaken the Lusitanian tribes, Galba invited the leading clans for peace talks and promised to relocate them to new fertile lands far away from the constant fighting. Many of the Lusitanian clans came for the peace talks and trusted the flag of truce. And when they were all assembled, a few Roman legions surrounded them and began to slaughter every man of military age. The end result was that 10,000 unarmed Lusitanians were butchered and another 20,000, mostly women and children, were taken as slaves back to Rome. I myself have trouble comprehending how devastating it must have been to witness a horror on that scale. Well, Viriato himself was present at this massacre and somehow managed to escape with his life. At this point, all Lusitanians became fugitives, running and hiding from the Roman death squads sent out to hunt down survivors. Viriato managed to band together with other Lusitanian warriors, and over the next few years he made the legions pay through relentless ambushes. He used the skills learned as a shepherd to help his people survive and conceal themselves in the forest, from which they would strike at the Roman columns seemingly out of nowhere. Viriato gained the loyalty of his entire nation when he and his warriors managed to outplay Roman praetor Vitellius, who had another Lusitanian contingent surrounded. Greatly outnumbered, Viriato had some of his men line up for battle, and they managed to coerce the Roman lines to charge, while another part of his force relieved the pinned-down Lusitanians with the Romans distracted. This success cemented the loyalty of the various clans, and he was elected as leader of all Lusitanian forces. Soon after this, Viriato came up with a daring plan to destroy the legions under Vitellius. With stories of Viriato's successes spreading throughout Lusitania, Viriato now commanded 10,000 men, and he kept them concealed so as not to let Vitellius know his numbers. He lured Vitellius's legions into a forested ravine with a cliff on one side, and positioned his 10,000 concealed in the forest in a long stretch along the road. When the Roman columns were strung out in front of them, they emerged from the foliage, painted in blue woad and ochre, roaring like beasts as they decimated an entire legion. The Lusitanians managed to kill over 4,000 Romans, including Vitellius himself. This was a disaster for Rome, and as you can imagine, the legionary recruitment rate dropped dramatically after this event. Viriato led the Lusitanians to 4 more victories, which finally forced the Senate to recognize Lusitanian autonomy and Viriato as their king. This was glorious, but short-lived, because soon after this episode, a Roman governor managed to bribe 2 of Viriato's allied ambassadors to turn on their leader and assassinate him in his sleep, which they did successfully. For me, this gut-wrenching ending to such a heroic journey leaves me feeling pretty heartbroken. To have fought so long and selflessly and actually succeeded against all odds to free your nation, only later to be betrayed in your sleep, is so telling of the Roman way of dealing with their enemies.
Look, with your orchid.
They're so good. So I have a date with a shepherd today. I know they move around a lot, so I'm hoping I'm able to find him successfully. Yeah, the shepherd we're going to see is the last shepherd who keeps his animals up on the top of Gardunha mountain. So in the past there was plenty of them, but nowadays it's just down to 1. I have always been fascinated with the lives of shepherds, their survival skills in the mountains, and the solitude they have to endure much of the time. I myself used to have a flock of sheep where we lived in the mountains of northern Spain. This shepherd herds goats, and his name is Antonio. He is the last shepherd who still herds his goats up the slopes of the Gardunha mountain range behind Castelo Novo. I hope to learn as much as I can from him, and I imagine he has some amazing stories. So this is Barbara. She is our close friend from this region. The same farm where me and Julie got engaged and Sebastian was born. She's the one who founded the farm and who runs it, and we grew very close with her when we were living on that farm. So we're so happy that she's our fellow pastor, herding the sheep with us today.
The goats.
Yeah, oh my God, the goats. Should I say that one more time? E o teu pai foi
O meu pai
pastor
foi
também?
pastor durante a vida toda. O meu avô era pastor.
Uau.
Portanto, eu, neste momento, sou o último da geração a continuar a ser pastor.
Sim.
Vamos ver se algum, o meu filho, mas penso que não, que ele não gosta de animais.
Oh, não.
Trabalha na agricultura, mas não animais.
Não animais, ok.
Porque o problema dos animais são 7 dias por semana.
Sim.
365 dias por
Não
ano.
podes viajar, não é?
Não posso viajar, não posso ser um fim de semana. O único que está a fazer queijo artesanal e o único pastor que continua a fazer pastoreio direto na Gardunha sou eu.
Uau.
Portanto, não há mais na Gardunha.
Não, mas uau.
As pessoas têm os rebanhos em parques, estabulados. Portanto, o único que continua a andar com elas sou eu. E continuo a fazer o queijo artesanal que se perdeu, que era um queijo de cabra feito à cabreira.
Sim.
É típico o queijo à cabreira aqui na nossa região,
Sim.
que já não existe.
Uau.
Só este ano é que apareceu no mercado outra vez, o mercado deles,
Sim.
né?
Sim.
que foi
Vendeu
muito
os
bom.
queijos todos.
Todos.
Uau. Eu estou muito feliz que ainda há um pastor no Gardunha que ainda anda com as cabras e tudo isso.
Tento manter
Sim.
a tradição e a arte do meu pai.
Sim.
Porque o queijo da Gardunha é constituído com leite de cabra e ovelha.
Yeah.
Mas tem que saber pôr as medidas. Geralmente é 60 de cabra, 40 de ovelha.
Sim.
Para fazer um queijo de mistura feito à cabreira. O queijo feito à cabreira é muito diferente do queijo da Serra de Estrela, ou propriamente da Idenha, porque não é virado.
Sim.
É simplesmente mexido com as mãos
Sim.
até a última fase do fabrico.
I feel that it's quite sad that Antonio is the last shepherd left who still herds his goats across the Gardunha mountain range. And so I wanted to ask him how it would feel to lose this ancient tradition.
Estilos de vida tradicional, como os estilos de pastor, o sabedoria de pastor também.
Sim.
Vai ser uma pena se perdemos tudo isso.
Sim, vai ser uma pena muito grande, mas cada vez mais se está-se a perder.
Sim.
Porque mesmo os jovens que se instalaram como agricultores
Sim.
não estão a fazer a agricultura de maneira tradicional.
Sim, sim.
E a agricultura tradicional é a agricultura que enriquece, o terreno e a região e as próprias pessoas.
Sim.
Aquele conhecimento antigo é muito rico,
Sim.
porque as coisas são feitas de maneira natural.
Sim.
Não são feitas com máquinas, sentados num computador, né?
Sim, sim, exato.
Muito diferente da agricultura que essa gente veio fazer por aí. Fazerem vedações, cercas elétricas e metem lá os animais e ficam aí, são fábricas de produção.
Sim.
E os animais não nasceram para ser fábricas de produção. Aliás, esses animais duram 4, 5 anos, enquanto estes no campo duram 10.
Sim.
É uma diferença muito grande.
É muito grande.
É muito grande.
Então o teu pai comprou um rebanho para ti?
Sim, quando eu tinha 10 anos.
10 anos?
Sim.
Uau.
E eu só fiz a 4ª classe.
Sim.
Já fiz o 6º ano, agora de adulto.
Sim.
Porque sempre, o meu sonho foi sempre estudar mais um pouco. E agora há poucos anos atrás tive a oportunidade de ter tempo para isso e fiz o 6º ano.
Sim.
Eu fui criado numa cabra.
Sim.
Quando era pequenino, eu mamava do teto da cabra.
Uau!
Verdade.
Saudável, não é?
Muito saudável.
Muito saudável, sim.
Porque o leite acabado de tirar é doce.
Sim. É doce.
E o leite mais idêntico com o leite da mulher é o leite de cabra.
Sim, eu vi isso também.
Sabe? É o leite muito
Pode
mais
dar
parecido.
a um bebê também,
Exatamente.
um bebê romano.
Um bebê recém-nascido
Sim.
pode ser criado com leite de cabra.
Com leite de cabra, uau.
Enquanto não pode ser com o de ovelha ou de vaca.
Sim, sim.
Mas com leite de cabra, sim.
Sim.
The thought of Antonio as a boy, drinking from the teats of his goats while up on the mountain makes me smile. Earlier I heard him mention a place nearby called the Rock of Viriato, and so I asked him if there was a legend connected to the place.
Foi que as pessoas contavam essa história.
Sim.
Em que o Viriato, durante a noite, meteu os archotes a arder na cabeça das ovelhas e lançou o rebanho, várias pessoas atrás, para que o rebanho fosse mais amplo, mais largo, e que parecesse que era um exército que ia descer as montanhas por ali abaixo. E aí,
quando os romanos estavam ali embaixo,
estavam acampados para tomar
ao pé da Serra da Estrela.
Exato, para tomar aquela região, para ocuparem aquela região. E aí ele conseguiu salvar essa região com os animais.
Com
um exército de ovelhas.
De cabras e ovelhas e vacas.
Exatamente.
It's incredible to me that Viriato is still remembered in the oral legends of the people, after nearly 2,200 years of history has gone by. Antonio told me that he learned this legend from shepherds in the nearby Serra da Estrela mountains, which is fitting, being that Viriato was a shepherd of those same mountains. E até quando vais subir com as cabras? Até quando?
Até ter pernas, até vou continuar a subir a serra e vou continuar a ter cabras enquanto tiver saúde para conseguir acompanhá-las.
Sim.
E enquanto apreciarem aquilo que eu faço.
Muito bem. Muito bem.
I'm so glad that guys like Antonio still exist. Even though he comes from a long line of shepherds, his journey of becoming one is completely unique and full of passion. Next we'll be heading to the Sortelia Festival, but first I have to find the way back down to my car. Hiking up to the medieval festival.
Yeah? Are you wearing your warrior's vest? So we just got to the Muralios Constoria Festival in Sortelia. We have no idea what's inside, but we've been hearing an amazing amount of music and drumming, so we can't wait to see what's inside.
This festival is called Muralios com Historia, Walls with History in English, and it celebrates the incredible history of this castle town of Sortelia. It was likely the site of another Lusitanian castro, which was subsequently conquered by the Romans, and then rebuilt in the Middle Ages to defend the border with Leon. It's considered to be the earliest Romanesque castle in this whole region. I can only imagine that Viriato may have visited this site in its earlier days to inspire recruits for his cause. Usually, when people think about the traditional music of Portugal or Spain, the bagpipe is not the first instrument that comes to mind. But in northern Portugal, the bagpipe is the soul of traditional music, and its sound perfectly embodies the very spirit of the land and the people. Its sound is one of longing and passion, and it speaks of the primordial ties that these people share with their fellow Celtic cousins to the north.
É o quê? Uma sangria ou hidromel?
Hidromel.
Hidromel?
Sim.
Com licença. Ok, é isso. Então aqui tens, e é tudo?
Sim.
Toda a vida foi pastor, ai, toda a vida guardei gado, tenho uma nova no peito, ai, assim gostarão casado.
A Nossa Senhora!
A Deus Nosso Senhor!
A Nossa de Deus Nosso Senhor!
Quem?
Deus Nosso.
De Deus Nosso Senhor! De Deus Nosso Senhor esteja com a nossa! Não é?
E beijinho na cruz.
Ai, eu não trouxe a minha.
Olha, mas podes beijar a minha.
Beija a minha.
Beija a minha. Beija a minha.
Beija a minha. Não beija a minha. E agora?
Vai!
Ele beijou a minha.
Olha!
À falta de melhor, bebo só 3.
Senhor, belo corno.
Ah, belo corno, é?
Cerveja, quer?
Cerveja, não precisas dos 3?
Eu preciso, mas posso.
Mas não tem que ser toda já, não é?
Não tem que ser.
E fizeste isso?
Isto é meu cajado.
Fizeste?
Não, emprestaram-me.
Ele é mau pastor.
Mau pastor.
Sou pastor. Pastor André Ventura. Pastor de poucas ovelhas. É verdade. Tenho duas.
tem umas?
Duas.
Tenho 2?
Olha aí.
2 aqui?
É.
E ordenhas?
Eu estou a ordenhar o...
Ele é macho. Eu não gosto de ordenhar os machos. Olha, saudinha e força na pelinha.
Que as nossas mulheres e as nossas amantes nunca se conheçam.
Olha, verdade. E se nos traírem, que seja por vingança.
Mas com um homem feio.
These are animal skins.
Fica com o sabor a aguardente.
Cheers. É muito bom. So ginger is a liquor made of the local cherries of this region. It has the local fire water, aguardente, and also cherries at the bottom. And I'm not completely clear on the entire fermentation process, but it's amazing. When we told Sebastian that there were real warriors guarding the castle, he insisted that we find them. We managed to find their living quarters, but no warriors yet.
Come on, come. Oh, I follow him.
Close the door over there.
So I know the warriors were here.
Dane went dancing with the pipers down the street. He can get pretty carried away with stuff like that, so hopefully he comes back soon.
Something about the bagpipes and drums always takes me back to an ancient time, as their sound has barely changed in thousands of years. And it feels so effortless to be swept away with the music and these people who so tangibly love their traditions.
It is so worth making the effort to travel with your kids. We feel that most of the time the benefits of exposing them to new cultures and languages outweighs the hard and tired moments that traveling naturally comes with. One tip that we would give to other parents planning to travel is to spend more time in fewer locations. We have noticed this added stability helps our kids cope with all the new experiences, and we all have more fun in the end.
Mommy, I want to climb on the castle.
Earlier on, I was accosted by a group of prostitutes. It was a very interesting experience. Medieval prostitutes, not modern ones, so it's okay. Oh, it's been amazing. You can just smell the smoke in the air everywhere you go from all the wood-burning fires. Cooking meats, pão com chouriço, bread.
How is traveling with the family?
It's been great. You just have to time things well with the kids and anticipate their needs so they don't melt down in the situations where you don't want them to, you know. Right now they're super hungry, so, you know, we've just been having fun, so we need to get them some food.
Qual tipos de carnes tens aqui?
Carne de porco, secretos, carne de porco preto, chouriça, porco preto também, chouriça caseira.
Wow. We're gonna have beef on it. He's cutting off our meat right now. Check it out. Rural Portuguese food can often be quite simple, but made from ingredients of an incredible quality. The Iberian Black Pig on the barbecue is the native pig of Iberia, thought to be domesticated thousands of years ago by the local Neolithic inhabitants. The standards of raising Iberian Black Pig have also not changed over the millennia. The pigs are raised in vast oak groves, where they forage continually on their favorite foods: acorns, wild mushrooms, herbs, and grasses. This rich lifestyle gives the meat its incredible flavor and quality. When Sebastian finally met the warriors of the castle, they let him hold a real sword, and he was completely awestruck. A perfect ending to an epic night.
So sad to leave this place. It was so awesome to call it home for a few days. But we are excited because we're going to go see our friends on the beach and stay with them, and hopefully Dane and Seb can find some surf. Before leaving this magical village, I wanted to share a local legend that I learned from an elderly woman down the street. Many centuries ago, a girl named Belisandra lived just outside the village. Accused of witchcraft, she lived alone. Whenever Belisandra had to enter the village, she had to endure the murmur of voices, mocking laughs, and contempt from the inhabitants of Castelos. The truth is that in moments of affliction, many went to Belisandra for help, but only in secret. People in the village said that the girl controlled the sun and the rain, cured illnesses, and gave advice on how to conceive baby boys. Even though she faced the mockery of Castelos' inhabitants, Belisandra never refused to help anyone. One day, when the people were preparing to harvest the fruits of their labor in the fields, a thick cloud came from the sky and covered the sun. Suddenly they realized that it was a plague of locusts. Desperate, the villagers of Castelo Novo joined together to ask Belisandra for help. To everyone's horror, the girl advised them to make a procession towards Senhora da Misericordia, since she was the only one who could help. The people heeded her advice and made the procession. Legend has it that the procession was making its way to the town square when the grasshoppers started to drop dead. The people then promised to make a procession every year, and they kept their word because they maintain this tradition to this very day in September.
We're driving out to the region where I was raised, a land of amazing seafood with a rugged coastline, and we're looking forward to staying with some of our best friends in Portugal. I think it's only fitting that we end this journey in a place that I have called home for so many years.
So good to see you. Oh, irmão.
How you doing, brother?
So good to see you. Wow. So we just arrived here. Oh yeah. Did you do that, Lewis?
No, Basil actually did that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because Basil's better.
Então pronto, tá pronto?
Yeah.
Vamos embora.
You get right.
This rugged coast is inhabited by an equally rugged people who have adapted to their environment over the millennia. Primarily subsisting off the sea, they built their fishing villages into the cliffs and valleys in locations where they could build harbors to protect their fishing rigs from the relentless swells of the North Atlantic. These fishermen truly were, and are, the bravest in the world. This Portuguese coastline receives some of the biggest waves recorded anywhere in the world, and during winter swells they sometimes reach 100 feet in height. It was never a guarantee that the men of these villages would return from their fishing voyages, as even just navigating out of their harbors during winter was perilous enough. It was from this same audacious spirit of facing the ocean in search of opportunity that the age of global exploration took hold in the 1400s. This led Portugal to creating the first global trade network the world had ever seen. As you can imagine, legends and myths of the sea abound in these villages, but sadly are slowly dying out with the passing of the older generation. Now it's down to us to brave the wild North Atlantic. There is something about its power that has always drawn me in and made me feel alive.
So we're gonna go surf some shore break. I'm super excited, and hopefully nobody hurts themselves. But this is one of our favorite pastimes to do in Portugal because there's such good shore break conditions on beater boards. If we use real boards, we would break them probably. So.
On this trip, I've learned that to really experience a place and a people, you have to ask questions. And you learn so much more when you fully dive in and participate. Though the ancient rural customs and lore are disappearing amidst this rapidly modernizing generation, it's encouraging to see people my age enthusiastically celebrating their festivals and their traditions. I mean, how could you not, when Portugal has so much to celebrate?